Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life and host of this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And today I have with me Guy Gane. Hey, Guy.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Now, we have had you on before, a couple
Yeah,
times before. So
yeah.
we've already shared your whole life story and everything. But right now, we're doing something special. You have a new course coming out that probably you're the first one that's doing this right now. And
hmm
so we want to talk about that. And so rather than go through your whole life story, can you just give us a brief summary of who are you?
Sure. Well, as you said, Kimberly, I've had a fascinating, wonderful life, but tonight we're going to talk about artificial intelligence and just a little bit about my background for people that would like to know a little bit. I was a stockbroker for many, many years in my career, over 34 years actually. And right now, as I started looking more and hearing more about artificial intelligence, I really started to become fascinated with it. Being a numbers guy as I was my whole life, I had I don't know if the word is maybe morphing into quantum physics. And when I dove more into quantum physics, I started hearing and seeing more about artificial intelligence. And the more I looked into it, again, the more fascinated I became. I think there's been a lot of misconceptions about AI. And rightly so. I think that people need to be really aware of what it is and what's going on. But what I had decided to do is put together a course really for people that really are kind of ignored, and that's the older folks. And I'm not talking about 90-year-olds. I'm talking about 50, 55-year-old and above. And the reason that I really thought about that is that, those of us now, I'm right in the middle of the baby boomer. And those of us really in that generation have kind of been ignored, not kind of, actually have been ignored when it comes to training about AI. And a lot of the folks that are aware of AI are born from the digital age. They were brought up with computers. I mean, you look at a person today who's 25 years old. I mean, we go back to the year 2000, 25 years ago. They've known nothing but the internet. I mean, my generation and the folks that are watching tonight that are my age or part of the baby boomers are going to remember when we were kids, if you even had a television, it was like a 15-inch screen. And when you look at the way technology is developed over the years, I remember we didn't get in my house a color TV until 1971. And I remember when I got that, or when my family purchased that, I remember sitting in front of that screen thinking, I can't believe I didn't want to take my eyes off of the screen because I was used to the black and white. So, just as our generation started getting used to computers, the internet, all of a sudden this comes up. And I really think it's important that folks that are 55 and above really become more aware of what AI is and what it can do for you, and really the benefits that come along with that. So it's really very, very unique, and it's been a joy. It really has. It's been a chore, but it's been an absolute joy to be able to put this together. What I did is it took us 6 months to really do this, and I had a good friend of mine who's an editor, actually was a TV producer who's retired now, and he helped me with this, and I couldn't have done it without him. But the thing is that I have a website designer. He put something together, well, a lot together with this as well. But I really think that it's important that we, as that generation, become aware of AI because, again, when we look at the advertisements out there, and I think most of your viewers and listeners, have a Facebook account or at least aware of it. And if you go onto your Facebook today, you've got at least a half a dozen, from what I can see, courses on AI. But again, those courses are all focused toward the digital age, the kids that grew up and the adults that grew up in that age. And there is nothing that is really focused on the older learner, and that's what I did. So as far as we know, we're the only course that's dedicated to the older learner.
Mhm. Yeah, and as you talk about that, there are people in all age groups that are not really using AI. Either they're not the type of person that's like in front of a computer much. They might have a job where they're
Hmm.
doing, physical work, or, they're a personal trainer. They're not using the AI a lot.
Right.
And I was
Right.
talking to someone the other day, and it was a younger person who hadn't really even used the AI. And I
Hmm.
said, if you don't use AI, you're already behind because
That's right.
everybody else is using it.
Right.
And, even something as simple as writing an email.
Hmm.
Say I had to write an email to my HOA. So
Hmm.
I wrote the email, and then even in Gmail, there's a little thing that says, do you want to polish this up? Which is
Yeah.
AI.
Right.
And I say yes. And all of a sudden the AI rewrites what I just wrote. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh, that sounds so much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could have sent it as is, but it sounded better when the
Of
AI helped
course.
me out.
Yeah, I think we were talking before we started here tonight, but I think one of the important things that people should consider is once they get into the chat GBT, which again, as you mentioned, is on our all most of, I don't want to say all, but as far as I know, all, but let's say most of the computers, to let the AI know who you are. And the way you can do that is like with the emails that you've sent and I've sent, or the writings that I've done. As you know, I'm an author, and I've sent a lot of my writings into the AI to get to know my cadence, to know how I speak, my tone, the things I convey. And I know we were talking beforehand that you named your computer, and I have too. Your ChatGPT, and I
Hmm.
think that mine is Rocco. And I think that I think it's kind of cool because it gets to know who you are. When I sign on, when I do, the first thing I'll see is hi guy, how you doing? And what can we do today? So for me, it's really helped me in many, many ways. But I do really think that, when you stop and think that AI has really been available to us, the general public, only since 2023.
Hmm.
And look at how far it's come. And over the next few years, it really, it's good, the good and the bad. The bad is it's going to replace jobs. The good thing is that it's going to become more efficient. And as you know, you probably heard last week that there is a lot of problems and consternation going on right now in Hollywood, with a new actress who's not a human. Tilly, I forgot her last name, but if you didn't know that she wasn't real, you would not know that she was real. And I remember speaking years ago, back in the 90s, when there was talk about this kind of stuff coming up, that, who knew, but it was out there. And I said, you watch that someday Hollywood is going to change, and that's all they're going to do is use what I thought was back then CGI.
Hmm.
But it is going to change. It's going to change things a lot. And the actors and actresses that are getting paid, 15 million, 20 million or more, um, I know I'll probably get some eggs thrown at me for this, but they're going to be a thing of the past in the next 10 years. They really are. I hope for their sake that they're not, because there's great actors
Hmm.
out there, no question. But this is the trend.
Yeah, exactly. And, when I think of Chat GBT, the little bit that I've learned, and I've heard that it like doubles in power and knowledge like every 3 months or something. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
crazy. But I found that if you just feel safe enough to just play with it a little bit. I mean, the other
Mhm,
day I was looking in my extra freezer and I'm like,
mhm,
I gotta eat some of this food that's in here. So I
right.
took an inventory of what was in my freezer.
Mhm,
And I put all of that, the amounts and everything, like I have 3 big bags of broccoli. Man, why aren't we eating the broccoli? And I said to Chat GPT, and I called mine Zia, that's what I named her.
mhm.
I said, this is all the food I have in my freezer. Can you please make some recipes using this? And she gave me like 20 recipes of different things that I can cook
Yeah,
using that. And so
right.
that's not real scary. So if you can just start with something easy and simple that there's not really a twist,
I mean, yeah. That's a good point because I think that the artificial intelligence that we're using as civilians is really at our control. And you don't have to use it all the time. You don't have to use it at all. I mean, but it is there when you want to use it. And I think that, and this is one of the things that I say, make sure to say in the course, is that I want to make sure that people understand that they're in control. That is so very important. They are in control. Now, that being said, if you have Alexa in your home or Siri in your home, it's a question that I've been asked, well, what about them? And yes, they do they know your voice certainly, but they do record it. They do store that information. There is a way to take that off. You go with the Alexa, you go into the settings and you can make sure that it doesn't save anything. But I know law enforcement has thought about and maybe even tried with us really not knowing to get into them. But I think it's important just to be aware of what you're doing.
Mm.
Pardon me.
That,
So I think that when people really grasp that, when they really understand that they're in control and they can't give up that control. The ChatGPT, especially, which is the very easy one to use, is not really going to remember anything unless you tell it to remember, as you probably know. If you want it to remember what you spoke about today, it will do that. If you don't tell it to do that, it won't. I mean, if you turn it on tomorrow, if you had, logged out of it and turned it on tomorrow, it won't really remember what you had spoken about with it today. So unless you tell it, I want you to remember this. So I think the important thing is for people to understand that are getting involved in learning more about AI and how do they use it. It's all about prompts. It's all about asking the right questions. And what do you mean? What's the right questions? Well, that's part of the thing that my course teaches.
so just for people who haven't used it at all,
Mhm.
what is a prompt?
A prompt is really knowing what to ask. Um, I on my video, the standalone video that I have with the course, I ask it to give me the recipe for beef Wellington. And that's a prompt. As a matter of fact, I mean, some of the things that I've asked are, so people would understand this, are some of the biggest problems and questions that older people have. The number one, I was really surprised at this actually when I looked into this a while ago. The number one concern of people that are retired right now, uh, based on the polls, is cognitive health, keeping your mind intact. And the second one was financial security. The third one, as we can imagine, is health and accessibility. The fourth one was independence. How do I stay independent and not have to rely on someone else? And then the fifth one was how do I deal with the loss of a spouse or a loved one? Because as we get older, nature takes hold, and we're going to lose the people that we love. So I think that when you look at that, if you ask questions, which I do in the course, to help people understand that. When you ask those questions, you're kind of pointed with that and ask an exact question. Like if somebody says, "Well, I got my doctor report." This is a very common one. I got my doctor report, but I have no idea what it means. And you give that to the ChatGPT, which is the simple one, by the way, because
Mhm,
there's so many different AIs, as you're aware.
mhm.
But if you give it to the ChatGPT, it will tell you in plain English what that all means. And I think that's a really, really big help, especially for older folks that don't have a clue. I mean, we don't want to go to the doctor and act completely stupid, but the thing is that some of us are bashful to ask the doctor, well, what exactly do you mean? Well, you absolutely should ask, but the real world is a lot of people don't, and they come home and they read something, and my mother was a nurse, and she's been gone now for quite a long time, but. Um, I remember, thankfully, I had a mother who was a nurse because I remember getting a prescription that was the wrong prescription when I was a kid. And, because my mother knew medicine, she was able to prevent a really big problem. She called up the drugstore and, and talked to the pharmacist. Oh my God, Mrs. Gane, you're right. I can't believe I'm so sorry. It could have been a disaster if I was just a kid that, my mom worked at, at the store type of thing. Not to put anybody down, I'm not. It's just that I happen to be blessed with someone who knew medicine. But like I said, I think now having this, we bring a prescription home. and we say, whatever, Rocco in my case, what does this mean? This is the prescription that I got. What is this for? And it will tell you. And the great thing is, you can talk to the computer, or you can just type it out, whatever's easier.
Mhm.
No,
Which is, yeah, really wonderful that you can just talk to it. Because a lot of people, even if they could type it out, that it just takes too long and you get too
right,
frustrated before you're
right, right,
done
right.
typing.
Right.
So,
I think that some people, from what I've heard, have told me that they feel a little weird talking to the computer. You get over that. You really do. If you've got a lot of work to do with the computer, however, with the chat GBT, you're going to really have to type it because it is in most cases is going to give you a certain amount of time that you can actually talk to it and it'll respond. That's on the free site. If you decide that you want to pay, you can, talk from now until whenever. But the free site only gives you a certain amount of time to talk, but it doesn't give you any time if you type.
mhm.
No.
Yeah. And the other thing I realized about the chat is you can actually download a document like
Hmm.
blood test or things like that, and
Yeah.
it can read it. I don't think it can read a picture, but you can tell me more about that. But it
Yeah.
kind of needs the text to read it and
Right.
analyze it and can help you with lots of things that you might have questions about.
Right. There's an icon on most of the chat GBTs that you can download pictures, you can download articles, and it will explain, what you're either seeing, what it means. There might be some ambiguities with what is in that picture that it will pick up. The thing is, though, too, is that I think when you're giving the AI the availability of something, it's going to 99.9% of the time going to be able to answer. Now, I think you've got to be very, very careful that you can't take everything that it says to heart because it could mislead you. Not intentionally. It just, I know for a fact because it's happened to me and I've had to check the work. Not all the time, but there's been enough times where I've asked the computer to do something and it's been a little bit different. But again, it's how you ask and what you ask and be very, very pointed. With my course, I give 260 different prompts that people can use, whether for business, for medicine, for everyday living, for recipes, whatever. With my course, we've got the course itself, which I tell everybody just take it for 20 minutes a day.
Mhm.
If you do that, you'll get through the course in about roughly 13 days. But with the course comes along with a workbook that follows the course exactly. We also have as I just mentioned, the prompts. We have a ebook that goes along with that, more as a thumbnail for that course, and then the video that I mentioned a minute ago, that just kind of gives some examples as to how to ask the questions and what to do. I think the important thing is though is that people need to really, I mean, they need to get involved with AI. They need to at least know what to do. Because I know I've talked to people a lot over the summer because I think I mentioned it took me over 6 months to do everything like this. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you it took me from morning till night. But the thing is that when I've spoken with people, and as you mentioned before, even younger people say, "Yeah, I really don't know much about AI." But the people are scared of it, and especially people that are older. We've seen the movies Terminator and some of these different things, which has really had an amazing effect. I've heard a lot of people tell me that oh, I seen Terminator is going to be like Terminator because it's the AI and it took over the world and such. Um, as we talked before we came on live, um, unfortunately, with every invention, and I mentioned this actually in the workbook. Um, Alfred Nobel, who developed the Nobel Peace Prize and the different prizes, he actually was the inventor of dynamite. You probably know that, but he invented dynamite to help miners to be able to not risk their lives in cave-ins and such. So it was really done for construction and for mining. But what happened? It ended up being used in bombs and to hurt people, kill people. Nuclear was the same way. I mean, that was designed originally thought to help with energy, like electricity, and eventually to replace that. And we know where that went. So I think there's going to be some sort of an oversee, but who oversees it? the people that may use it for nefarious purposes. That's why you've got to know these things. You just can't put your head in the sand and say, well, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to know about it because it doesn't help me and I don't know anything about it anyway and it's too confusing and I forget it. And I've heard that too. And, I respect everybody's opinion, but it is important to at least know what it's about. Whether you do anything with it or not is up to you. But I think the more that people delve into it, the more people get to know about it. I think the more intrigued they get and the more comfortable they get.
Mhm. Yeah, and as you're talking about, I was thinking about, sometimes if you
Pardon me.
call or you text in like AT&T or a company like that,
Hmm.
and their chat person comes on, and you think you're talking to a person, but
Absolutely.
it's just the AI answering the questions, and the AI can answer a lot of questions until you get to a point where it's like you're asking a specific question about
Hmm.
your account that they
Right,
can't answer, then they will
right,
send you over to a real person.
right.
But most of the time, you're talking to the AI.
That's right. That's exactly right. And when people, when I've talked about this with older folks, I tell them you're already using AI. Well, what do you mean? Well, do you have MapQuest in your car or Google Maps in your car? Well, yeah, that's AI. Alexa, as we already mentioned, and Siri, that's AI. When you look at some of the different things that we're using on a day-to-day basis, I mean, it's amazing to know that we're already using AI all the time. We just, banks use it to prevent fraud. They, when if there's a weird transaction in your bank account, the banks will call and say, "Did you make this transaction? Is this you?" They get that prompt from the artificial intelligence that the bank is using. So there's, so many ways that um, uh, this technology, the AI technology, is already in our lives. And certainly, like you just mentioned a minute ago, if you make a mistake, for instance, on an email, or you're doing a document of some sort, and you'll see the little line underneath the word, and maybe you spelled it wrong or whatever. But when you go to correct that, the chat GPT will come on and say, "Would you like me to rewrite this?" And like you said a minute ago, in many cases, it's the idea is there that we wanted, but it's written in a much better way, which I don't know is good or bad, but it's a good thing. What I also did is I also earlier in the year wrote a book about AI, and that's available on Amazon along with my other books. But that one is called Second Wind and A Graceful Journey into AI Wisdom. But that particular book is, again, it's simple reading, but it gives the person that reads what's in there an idea as to, oh, okay, oh, yeah, okay, I didn't know that type of thing.
Yeah. So the course that you have, um, I know when I look at a course these days, more and more people are making it easier for courses. Most people don't just want to go in and read lots of things
Hmm.
and then listen to 10 videos per chapter and you don't even want to finish then. So how is your course organized so that it's actually easy to consume?
Right. What we did is we put together 10 modules that are all within that course. And when somebody takes the course, they can just concentrate on the one module at a time. Each module has has four segments in it. It will take about 20 minutes, give or take a couple of minutes here and there, to go through. But I tell everybody, just do this for 20 minutes a day. Again, because you can overload. If you're not used to this, it's like, sitting down and somebody putting a math paper in front of you and say, here, go through this. I mean, it's all numbers after a while. So I tell people, have along with what I've given you, which you should download, the workbook and the ebook and, the prompts as well. But what I tell everybody is to have a journal along with you and write some questions down that you have. And it's going to be answered in there. It really is. And there's things that you can do. There's examples of how you should go into your computer and ask questions. And it's not only ChatGPT. There's so many different Jasper and Zealand. There's hundreds right now
Mhm.
of AI apps that you can use for various functions. The older people right now that are using this have told me that they've written books with it. They've tutored, if they were a retired school teacher, they've used that to teach. It's amazing what it can do. I mean, as simple things as making greeting cards, it does that as well. And, I've seen where, which really surprised me, honestly, I've seen where older people have supplemented their income by at least a couple $100 a month if that's what they want. And there's even people, I've not met this, I've just what I'm hearing is there's even people that are older learners that are making about $10,000 a month doing this type of thing. And I don't know that most people want to do something like that, but hey, if you could make $1,000 a month sitting in your home, whether it's tutoring or writing something or doing something for your organization, to write a newsletter or if you're the secretary of an organization and you need to write newsletters, you can put it in there and it'll do it for you. Again, as long as you know what to ask and you have the theme that you want to get an answer about.
Another thing I found that's really helpful is if you're brainstorming, because sometimes, when you're just in your own head, you're just
Hmm.
like, you can't seem to think of anything more. And
Right.
then if you ask the AI, it comes up with more. And if it gives you 10 things, let's
Right.
say, I'll say, can you give me 10 more things? And
And it
it
will.
does.
Yeah, it'll keep going. It'll keep going with the things that you think, oh wow, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I mean, I get a lot of that. When I'm going through things, I hadn't thought about that. But the Chat GPT will bring that up, and the Chat GPT is the simple one. I mean, it really is. I mean, anybody can use it. It's very, very simple to use. As you get more complicated, like Canva and these type of things that are going to be create, you can create different things with these different apps. But you've got to start somewhere. And that's what my course does is I made it in where someone who really knows nothing about AI could learn from that because there's no fancy jargon in there. There's
Mhm.
no complicated calculuses in there and calculations and how do I do this and how do I do that. Everything is very, very simple. And the reason is because when we learned how to walk, that was the thing that we needed to do before we could ride a bicycle.
Mhm.
We learned how to crawl. Then we learned how to walk. Then we learned how to run. And then, we have to have a basis for whatever that we do. And again, a lot of the courses that are out there, and they're great. I'm not putting anything down, but again, they're geared toward the person who is already very familiar with digital, with the computers and so on. And so they're assuming that the person who's taking that course really knows, has a basis. Older people just don't because we weren't part of that generation. Now, there are a lot of people that are older that do know about this, but there's a lot more that don't. And that's really where this course is geared toward. And the target audience is the 55 and above. But again, it's written in such a way that people will totally understand it very, very easily.
And that is so important because someone had put an ad about AI course, and I even went to their webinar and I listened. I thought this is really cool.
Right.
And then in the end, I didn't purchase. You know why I
Mhm.
didn't purchase? So I thought that's really cool, but I don't think I can do it. I
I
looked
know.
at how complicated it was. I just I
Right.
don't think I can do it. So I didn't
Right.
purchase.
Yeah, and you're a young lady. If you get somebody 70, 75 years old, I know I'm 70. Actually, I'm 71. But, the thing is that you can't assume that people know about that stuff. And again, we have to give ourselves a break. And I think, we can't be too hard on ourselves. Oh, I'm a dummy. I should know this. No, how would you know unless you're taught? And if you're being taught or at least given instructions in a very complicated way. You're not going to remember anything. You're not. And that's what this course, that's why I tell people only spend 20 minutes a day on this. Because if you do, you'll retain the knowledge. And then go back to the notes that you have. Go back to the workbook and so on that we have. I'm sorry for this cold. I don't know where that's been coming from, but last 2 days, I think the weather's changing up here
The
in the
weather
north.
changing here too, from hot to cold. So
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
does that. But
yeah.
so if people wanted to take this course, where
Mhm.
do they go to get it?
Yeah, the site is academy.ai. gainwisdom.com. That's academy.gane wisdom. That's one word, gainwisdom.com. And they can go there, they can sign up. The course itself is terribly expensive at $29.95 to $29.95. And people have said to me, "What? That's all you're going to charge?" And yes, that's all. Because again, I want people to understand this. I want people to be aware of what's going on. And who's going to spend $100 or $500 to learn something like you just said that it was too complicated? No,
Mhm.
I didn't want that. I wanted people to be able to understand this. We certainly have things up and above that. If people wanted to learn more, we have that available as well. But I really would ask people really to start out where they can learn the very basics. Again, learn how to crawl, learn how to walk, learn how to run.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing that
Well,
with
thank
us.
you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate you letting me come on tonight. Yeah, like I said, Kimberly, I think that it's important that we learn. Whether we do anything with it or not is entirely up to us. But the one thing I do want to leave people with is that remember that you are in control. When you speak to a computer, you are the one that's in the control room, not them. They cannot do anything that you don't want it to. And put out of your mind, all of these, scary things that we've heard about it. Again, we need to be aware that, hopefully that's not going to happen. But it's better to know what we're talking about than just go blindly and
Mhm.
hope for the best. At least that way you know what's going on. But it's a fascinating new technology that's come out again only since 2023, and I think that you'll find the course really very very interesting and very easy to go through too.
All right. Well, thank you so much,
Well,
Guy.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Bye bye.